Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and this is Sir Gremar, and I will be discussing about hydrocarbons. So, credits to Ma'am Marshall Asilador for the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, siya yung nag-prepare po dun sa ating PowerPoint, and I am only presenting the PowerPoint on her behalf. Okay, so without further ado, this is our video lecture on hydrocarbons. Okay, apologies guys because some of the topics in our midterm would be through video lectures and likes of course because we only have like a month, less than a month to tackle everything for the midterms, and we have like at least 4 or 5 topics, long topics for that matter, and that's why we have to like do it like this in this setup to ensure that we tackle everything before you actually have your midterm examinations. Okay, so for our learning outcome for today, number one, after the discussion you will be able to identify daw and draw acyclic alkanes and cycloalkanes. So basically guys, when we say acyclic, okay, acyclic, we are actually referring to linear alkanes, okay, linear alkanes. And when we say cycloalkanes, so from the word cyclo, they are actually circular, okay, these are actually circular. And another learning outcome, after the discussion you will be able to identify constitutional isomers. Now these constitutional isomers are also known as your structural isomers. Okay? Itong constitutional isomers natin, ito yung tinatawag din natin na structural isomers because these are actually compounds that have the same molecular formula pero magkakaiba ng connectivity. Okay? So number 3 learning outcome, after the discussion, you will be able to name, okay, alkanes using the IUPAC system of nomenclature. Fourth, you will be able to identify the 3 major types of unsaturated hydrocarbons. So we have your alkenes, alkynes, and your aromatic compounds. And lastly, of course, we have here learning outcome, recognize the difference between constitutional isomers and stereoisomers, as well as identify cis and trans isomers. Okay, so that's it for our learning outcome. So let's dive into the discussion part now of our video lecture. So saturated compounds are molecules whose carbon chains contain only carbon-carbon single bonds. So take note guys, how when you hear the word saturated and unsaturated, they are actually different. Okay, they are actually different. Now, when we say saturated, okay, kapag sinabi natin saturated hydrocarbons, okay, these are actually compounds, organic compounds that have only carbon-carbon single bonds. Okay? So take note, kapag sinabing saturated, it's carbon-carbon single bonds. Okay? Other than single bonds, okay, or if you encounter carbons that do not have or that has bonds other than single bonds. For example, meron siyang double bonds, meron siyang triple bonds. Those are actually examples of unsaturated hydrocarbons naman. Okay? So your hydrocarbons, they are actually the simplest, okay, organic compounds. Okay? Your hydrocarbons are the simplest organic compounds, okay, basically because they contain only 2 elements, okay, hydro, which is hydrogen, of course. Your hydrocarbons are made up of hydrogen syempre, and carbons. So they are actually the simplest type of your organic compounds. Now, being the simplest organic compounds, sila yung ating foundation for most organic molecules. Okay? So when we say foundation, they are the backbone, kind of like backbone of other organic compounds. So they build, okay, the other organic compounds are made up of hydrocarbons, okay. Nagkakaroon lang ng substitution with additional functional groups doon sa ating usually sa ating mga hydrogen and carbon atoms in our chain or in our general structure. So we have to define between saturated and unsaturated Okay, basically we have defined yung saturated na kanina. So when we say saturated, again, these are compounds that has only single bonds. Okay, only single bonds. Okay, ano na ulit yung tawag natin sa mga hydrocarbons that have only single bonds? These are actually your alkanes. Tama? These are actually your alkanes po. And we also have unsaturated hydrocarbons. Okay, when we say unsaturated hydrocarbons, guys, these are actually hydrocarbons that contain two. Okay, they contain two or three bonds. Okay, two or three bonds, and we all know what do we the name for these hydrocarbons that have two or three bonds. These are actually your alkanes. Okay, these are hydrocarbons that contain two bonds. Okay, and for hydrocarbons that have three bonds naman, these are called your alkynes. Okay, these are called your alkynes. Okay, now take note, guys, that both, okay, your saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons are examples of aliphatic hydrocarbons. Okay, these are examples of aliphatic hydrocarbons. So we also have another type kasi of a hydrocarbon, which is called your aromatic hydrocarbon po. Okay, your aromatic hydrocarbon. So when we say aromatic hydrocarbon, these are actually hydrocarbons that have benzene rings. Okay, they have benzene rings kasi. These are hydrocarbons that have benzene rings. Okay, so technically speaking, guys, there are two main types of hydrocarbons. You have your aliphatic and your aromatic. Aliphatic, okay, and aromatic. So when we say aliphatic, what can you infer between these two? They are usually linear in structure. Okay, they are acyclic in structure. And when we say aromatic, okay, these are actually organic compounds kasi that have benzene ring. Okay, they have the benzene ring, so these are actually organic compounds that are circular in structure. Okay, they are circular in structure. Okay, so for hydrocarbons, they are the simplest organic compound. And of course, being the simplest organic compound, they are the foundation of most organic molecules. So that's it for this one po. So we have here basically the, what do you call this, the hierarchy or the classification rather of hydrocarbons. So we have saturated and your unsaturated hydrocarbons. So for saturated, you have your alkanes over there. Okay, basically those hydrocarbons that contain only carbon-carbon single bonds. And for unsaturated, you have your alkenes, alkynes, and your arenes. Okay, and your arenes. So if you're going to ask me, okay, your alkanes, alkynes, and alkenes, these are actually your aliphatic. Okay, these are your aliphatic hydrocarbons po. While on the other hand, your arenes, okay, these are your aromatic. Okay, your aromatic hydrocarbons, those that contain the benzene ring. Okay, those that contain benzene ring. Careful lang kayo, guys, because aliphat or aromatic rather hydrocarbons are examples of unsaturated hydrocarbons pa rin sila. So yeah, that's it. And we have here for a table that shows you how to name, okay, alkanes, okay, with unbranched chains. Okay, so these are linear compounds, okay, that do not have any substituents. Okay, they do not have any attached substituents. So for a one carbon atom na compound, we call it actually your methane. Okay, methane. So for a 2 carbon naman po na organic compound, that is your ethane, and so on and so forth. So meth refers to 1 carbon in the formula. Et naman, guys, these are actually called your prefixes. Okay, they are called your prefixes. Okay, et refers to 2 carbon present in the formula. Okay, 3 carbon for propane, butane for 4 carbon organic compound, pentane for a 5 carbon organic compound, and so on and so forth. So these are actually the names for the first 20 alkanes with unbranched chains. Okay, these are the first 20 alkanes with unbranched chains. So, paaral na lang guys itong mga naming natin. Okay? Undecane for 11, carbon with 11, carbon with 11 atoms on it. Dodeca for 12, trideca for 13, tetradeca for 14, pentadeca for 15, hexadeca, and so on and so forth until 20 guys. Kapag 20, it's actually your icosane. Okay, icosane. Okay, so we move on to your constitutional isomers. Okay, so again, I've already mentioned kanina that when we say constitutional isomers, these are actually the same compound. Okay, they have these are actually same compounds kasi meron silang the same chemical formula pero magkakaiba sila ng connectivity. Okay, magkakaiba sila ng connectivity. So we have here the definition of your constitutional isomers wherein these are compounds daw that have the same molecular formula but different in structural formulas. Okay, so if a larger number of carbons and hydrogens combine, more than one kind of molecule can form. This is actually very true, guys. The more you increase, okay, the number of carbon and hydrogens in a molecular formula, the more constitutional isomers that compound can have. Makikita ninyo later that a 4-carbon organic compound has 2 number of structural isomers as compared to a 5 carbon natin na organic compound which has 3 structural isomers naman. So basically the more you increase the number of carbon atoms in a molecular formula, carbon and hydrogen atoms by the way, in a molecular formula, the more you also increase the number of constitutional isomers there is for that specific organic compound. Okay, so sana naintindihan nyo yun. So we have here for constitutional isomers, we have here straight chain or alkanes, or these are actually your normal alkanes that can be designated as N, guys. Okay, designated by N. So kapag nakakita kayo ng molecular compound na may name na N butane, okay, and butane ganun, basically guys, it's a straight chain alkane lang yon. So it's actually just a carbon with 4 carbon in the chain, okay. Kaya siya N because it's normal, okay, it's straight chain and there's no other there's no other attached substituent into the chain, okay, into the chain, kaya siya tinawag na N chain or the normal alkane. Okay, so these are compounds daw like your butane whose carbons are connected in a row. Okay, they are connected in a row. So for example, yung pinakita ko kanina, your butane has something like this na structure po. Okay, all carbons are connected in a row. Okay, all carbons are connected in a row. So there's no attached substituent in any of the carbon in the butane. So this is your N-butane. Okay, this is your N-butane or your normal butane. Okay, on the other hand, we also have our branch chain alkanes. Okay, your branch chain alkanes. Okay, sir, what are these branch chain alkanes po? Okay, your branch chain alkanes, these are compounds naman that has branch carbon chains. Okay, they have the branch carbon chains, such as for example, you have your isobutane here or your 2-methyl propane. So take a look guys, if you're going to compare itong N-butane natin with that of your isobutane or your 2-methyl propane, how are you going to draw that, by the way? So basically, you have a 4 or a 3 carbon kasi it's a propane daw yan. Okay, it's a propane. And you have a methyl group attached to carbon 2. So this is your carbon 2 and you have a methyl group attached to it. Okay, so this is an example guys of an isomer of your 4-carbon organic compound. Okay, it's an isomer of your 4-carbon organic compound because, okay, there's a there's a substituent attached to your carbon 2 in this specific structure. Okay, we all know that if you see, right, if you see a structure that contains 4 carbons, we call it butane. Okay, that's according to our previous discussions before. If you see 4-carbon organic compound, ang tawag natin dun, it's a butane. Okay, but take note guys that although this compound has a 4-carbon in the chain, okay, or in its structural formula, okay, or in its molecular formula rather, kapag dinrawing mo siya in its structural formula guys, magkaiba po yung position ng ating carbon as compared to your straight chain alkane na butane. Okay, this specific example po natin. So as you can see, there's a methyl attached to your carbon 2 of the parent chain. This is your parent chain. Okay, this is called your isobutane po, or 2-methyl propane. Okay, 2-methyl propane. So sana naiintindihan yun guys, that a 4-carbon chain, okay, in a straight row, okay, is different from a 4-carbon pero may naka-attach na methyl group sa kanyang carbon 2. Magkaiba silang organic compound yun. Although they have the same molecular formula, they are different compounds. Okay, they have different structural formulas kasi. So basically, they are different type of compounds. So that's it. Okay, so we have here methane, ethane, and your propane. Okay, so itong mga itong first 3 natin guys, yung ating methane, itong ethane, and yung ating propane, okay, these are organic compounds that only have one number of structural formula. Okay, they only have one structural formula. So this structural formula that you can see on your screen is true for all methane and for all ethane and propane there is. Okay, but take note guys that according to what I've said earlier, the more you increase the number of carbon and hydrogen atoms in your organic compounds, the more constitutional isomers there will be for that specific organic compound. Okay, for that specific hydrocarbons na lang pala. Okay, so for example, in your butane, okay, your butane has how many structural formula? You can see there's actually 1. Okay, there's actually there's actually 2 because this is actually also a correct structural or representation of your butane, and you also have your isobutane for that matter. So there are how many? 1 and 2 structural formula, okay, for butane. Okay, and both of these are actually correct. Okay, they are both correct representation of how butane of how a 4-carbon containing compound can look like. Okay, again, both of these structural formulas are correct representation of how a 4-carbon compound can look like. Okay, can look like. So that's it. And we have here for pentane, there's actually 3 structural isomers for pentane. Okay, we have 1 here, straight chain lang siya, so it's N-pentane. N-pentane. There's no attached substituents in any of the carbon in the chain, okay, in the structure. While in here, in your number 2 isomer of your pentane, right, there's a methyl attached to carbon number 2 of the compound. Okay, so this is your carbon 1 kasi, this is your carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. So the name for this compound is 2 because carbon 2 naka-attach yung ating attached substituent, which is a methyl. Okay, it's a methyl. Therefore, the name for that would be 2-methyl butane. So this is actually also a correct, okay, representation of how a 5-carbon organic compound can look like. Also, seems true with the number 3 structural formula for pentane po. Okay, so as you can see, there's two methyl groups attached to carbon 2. Okay, attached to carbon 2 of the compound. Okay, so the name for that would be 2,2-dimethyl propane. Okay, 2,2-dimethyl propane. Although, as you can see, it's a propane. Diba? Ang sabi natin dun, kapag sabi natin prop, it's a hydrocarbon that has 3 carbon in its chain, di ba? Kapag sabi natin propane, okay? It's a propane. Okay, kapag 3 carbon containing ano ulit? Wait lang. Kapag sabi natin propane, these are a hydrocarbon that contains 3 hydrocarbon that contains 3 carbon in its structure, okay, in its structure. But take note kasi guys that there's 2 methyl groups attached to carbon number 2, so that makes it a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's a 5 carbon pa rin siya. So technically this is still po a pentane. Okay, it's technically a pentane, although you cannot just call it a pentane because as we have mentioned kanina, magkaiba po yung attachment. Okay, magkaiba po yung connection nung ating dalawang carbons, okay, as compared to your N-pentane na linear lang yung kanyang structure. So I hope that is understood po for everybody. So we have here our table for molecular formula and the number of structural isomers they have. So the first 3 of our organic compounds, of our hydrocarbons, they only have 1 structural formula po. And as you increase the number of carbon and hydrogen in the formula, you are also increasing po yung ating number of structural isomers they have. Okay, so let's do it na lang as a class po. Draw all possible isomers of C6H14. So basically guys, it's A. Kapag sinabing C6H14, ano ulit ang ating prefix for that? It's actually hex. Okay, it's hex. Okay, if the hydrocarbon is not does not have any attached substituents po, linear lang siya, you can just name it as hexane or as it is na lang. Okay, so now you are going to draw all possible isomers for hexane. And for hexane, for a carbon 6 or a 6 carbon containing hydrocarbon, right, a 6 carbon containing hydrocarbon, there are actually 5 structural isomers for that. Okay, and number 1, dito na lang siya. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is an example of a N-hexane po. Okay, it's a normal or unbranched hexane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kulang pala ako ng isang carbon. Okay, sir, paano yung naging hexane? Take note guys that every points or edges and bends in structural formula of this compound is representative of a carbon. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which makes this structure po a hexane. Okay, a hexane. Now, your hexane can also have or can also be represented as something like this. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then there's methyl there. Okay, there's methyl there. So kung makapansin niyo guys, there's still 6 carbons in the chain because if you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, 4, 5, and 6. But of course, the name will be different. Okay, the name will be different. So kung mapapansin niyo, there is a methyl group attached to carbon number 2. So the name for that, for this compound would be 2, and the name of the attached substituent, which is methyl, and then the name of the parent chain is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 2-methyl pentane. Okay, that's how you can name it. Wait nga, ulitin natin guys, baka malito kasi kayo. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's a methyl attached to it. So, bakit siya pentane? Because the parent chain, guys, kapag sinabi natin parent chain, the longest hydrocarbon or the longest carbon chain. So, ito po yung longest carbon chain natin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? That's why it's a pentane. Ito yung parent chain natin na tinatawag. And there's actually an attached substituent. Okay? May isa tayong carbon na attached doon sa ating carbon number 2. Meron tayong isang methyl that is attached to your carbon number 2. That's why it's 2-methyl. Okay? That's why it's 2-methyl. Okay? So, third representation for a 6-carbon hydrocarbon compound would be something like this. Okay? Okay. So, again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? These compounds still have 6 carbons in the structure. Pero take note, guys, that the naming of this compound would be different from this one and from this one. Now, since the attached substituent is a 1-carbon substituent, it's a methyl po. It's a methyl. Okay? Now, the methyl is attached to carbon number 3. So, it's 3-methyl. Okay? It's 3-methyl. And the parent chain for this compound, the longest carbon chain for this compound is 5-carbon. Okay? It's a 5-carbon. That's why the name, the root name for this structure would be pentane. So, the overall nomenclature po for this one is 3-methyl pentane. Okay, it's 3-methyl pentane. Now, for the fourth structure of your C6H14, it can also look like this. Okay, wherein there's 2 attached methyl in your structure. So, bilangin natin kung ilang carbon yung meron dito sa atin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so technically there's still 6 carbons in our structure. So, yeah, pasok pa rin siya doon sa ating C6 H14 na structure. Okay, but basically, guys, the name for this one would be different from the rest of the 3. Okay, from the rest of the 3. The longest carbon chain is a 4-carbon po. It's a 4-carbon chain. So, carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. Okay? And in carbon number 2 and carbon number 3, there's an attached methyl. Okay? There's an attached methyl daw. So, there's 2-methyl, right? So, the name for this one is dimethyl. Kasi dalawa yung methyl na attached doon sa ating carbon number 2 and 3. Now, the location of the methyl is actually at carbon number 2 and carbon number 3. Okay? And the root name for this compound is yung ating longest carbon chain, which is a 4 carbon chain, which is a butane. Okay? Which is a butane. So, the name for this compound is 2,3-dimethyl butane. Okay? 2,3-dimethyl butane. And lastly, okay, lastly for the last isomer of your C6H14 is pwede siyang ganito yung kanyang itsura. Okay, so as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6-carbon structure. Okay, it's a 6-carbon structure. However, again, similarly to the other examples, guys, the name for this one would be different. Okay, the name for this one would be different. So, there's actually 2 methyls attached to your carbon number 2. So, dimethyl. Okay, and their location is at 2, 2. Okay, and the longest chain, parent chain for this structure is a 4 or 4-carbon chain, yung pinakamahabang carbon chain natin. That's why the parent or the root name would be butane. So, the correct name for this one is 2,2-dimethyl butane. Okay, if you're going to follow the IUPAC naming po. Okay? If you're going to follow the IUPAC naming. So that's it. That's it for the all possible isomers of your C6H14. Okay? So we have here yung kanilang correct or mas maayos na representation of the isomers of your C6H14. Okay? C6H14. Okay? Wait lang guys, hindi ko na kayang tiisin yung aking ihe. Okay. So, going back guys, ito yung ating mas maayos na drawing ng ating isomers ng ating C6H14 na hydrocarbon po. Okay? So, let's go to our naming of your alkanes. Okay? Naming of your alkanes. Okay, so let's talk about the prefixes that you can use for the IUPAC nomenclature of your alkanes. Okay, again guys, kapag nakakita kayo ng one carbon atom in the structural formula, okay, or in the molecular formula of your compound, ang tawag po natin ang ating prefix for that would be meth. Okay, meth. Kapag dalawa yung carbon, our prefix would be eth. Kapag tatlo, prop. Kapag apat, but. Kapag lima, pent. And so on and so forth. Okay? So, ito kailangan talaga ninyong alam to because it will help you a lot in the nomenclature of different types of compounds soon. Okay? Soon. Okay? So, for here, okay, meron tayong tinatawag in a structural or in a condensed formula guys, meron tayong tinatawag na parent chain and meron din tayong tinatawag na substituent. Okay, meron din tayong tinatawag na substituent. So guys, kapag sinabi nating parent chain, paulit-ulit ako dito kanina, this is actually the longest carbon chain. Okay, this is the longest carbon chain. Okay? Itong substituent on the other hand, ito yung attached. Ito yung ating group that is attached to the parent chain. Okay? Ito yung naka-attach dun sa ating parent chain po. Okay? So, in this specific example, ito parehas lang yung dalawang yan. This is the condensed formula and this is the structural formula. Okay? So, in our example, there's actually the longest carbon chain is 8. Okay? 8 po yung pinakamahabang carbon chain natin. Okay? Now, you cannot count from this one. Okay? Hindi ka pwede magbilang ng carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, 4, 5, 6. Because if you're going to count like that, okay, the longest chain would only be 6. Okay? The longest chain would only be 6. Unlike if you're going to start counting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which will give you 8 carbon chain. Okay? Therefore, the parent chain has a total of 8 carbons, okay, in the structure. Okay? In the structure. And take note guys that when counting pala yung parent chain natin, you count the side that will give you the lowest number of the attached substituent. Anong ibig mong sabihin, Sir Gray? Okay, so for example, you know that this is your parent chain, di ba? You know that this is your parent chain. Now, the question is, saan ka mag-start magbibilang? Is it on the left side of the chain or is it in the right side of the chain? Basically guys, kahit saan naman dun. But take note that if you're going to count the number of the carbon kung saan naka-attach yung ating substituent, dapat yung the number of carbon should give you the lowest number. Okay? So for example, let's start counting from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in carbon number 4, nakita mo na yung ating attached na substituent, which is ACH3. Unlike guys, if you're going to start counting from this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So sa fifth carbon mo nakita yung ating attached substituent na methyl. Okay? So between 4 and 5, which one should you choose? Of course, doon tayo sa lowest number of carbon that will give you or that will let you see the first substituent. So we prefer to count from this side going to this side. Okay? That's why the name for this one, it's 4-methyl octane, not 5-methyl octane. Okay? You choose itong number na to that will give you the lowest number of carbon. Okay? The lowest number of carbon from which you can encounter the attached substituent. Okay? From which you can first see or encounter itong attached substituent natin. Ito, mali itong 5-methyl octane natin. So, yun lang guys. That's another tip, okay, in naming that you have to at least master. So meron naman tayo dito sa mga susunod pala na rules, sa mga susunod na slides natin, yung mga rules ni IUPAC system for naming hydrocarbons. Okay, so the number 1 in our rules for IUPAC system is the name of the alkane with an unbranched chain of carbon atom consists of a prefix showing the number of carbon atoms in the chain and ending with "ane." Okay, it's ending with "ane." Okay, so this is actually true guys for for saturated hydrocarbons. So for those organic compounds that contain only carbon-carbon single bonds. Kasi nga, it's ending with "ane." If it ends with a double bond, it should end with "in." Okay? And conversely, if it's a triple bonds, okay, or there's a triple bonds in the hydrocarbon, it should end in "ine." Okay? It should end in "ine." But since we are talking about saturated hydrocarbons here pa lang naman, therefore, the nomenclature should end with "ane." Okay, it should end with "ane." Okay, so that's rule number 1. As for our rule number 2, okay, for our rule number 2, for branch chain alkanes, okay, take the longest chain of carbon atom as the parent chain. Okay, so you take the longest chain of carbon atom as the parent chain and its name becomes the root name. Okay, becomes the root name. Okay, so yung example natin kanina, hinanap natin yung ating carbon chain that will give you the longest number of chain of carbon. Okay, and you take it as the parent chain, tapos yun yung root name ninyo. Okay, this is the root name, your octane, kasi 8 carbon, there's total of 8 carbon in the formula. Okay, in the formula. So we move on to our rule number 3 po. Okay, by the way guys, do you know the definition of your IUPAC? Okay, your IUPAC, this is actually the international union for pure and applied chemistry. That's IUPAC for you. Okay, so rule number 3. For rule number 3 guys, this is regarding yung ating mga attached na substituent. So the rule says that you have to give each substituent on the parent chain a name and a number. Okay, so there's 2 things that you have to do according to rule number 3. You have to name it. Okay, you have to give it a name and a number. Okay, you have to give it a name and number. So the number actually shows the carbon atom of the parent chain to which the substituent is bonded. Okay, you have to use hyphen to connect the number to the name. So for example, we have here, okay, there's a methyl attached to carbon number 2. Okay, there's a methyl attached to carbon number 2. So methyl, okay, attached to carbon number 2, tapos yung ating root name ng ating parent chain, because your parent chain contains 1, 2, 3, okay, it's a 3 carbon chain po natin na compound. Therefore, our root name here would be propane. Okay, prop to refer to 3 carbon chain, and then ane to refer to saturated alkane. Okay, it refers to saturated alkane. Tapos itong 2-methyl, okay, this is your substituent. Okay, basically it's a methyl. It's a methyl that is attached to carbon number 2. It's a methyl that is attached to carbon number 2. Okay, carbon number 2. So for rule number 4 po, if there is one substituent, number the parent chain from the end that gives the lowest number. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko na rule kanina. Okay? That if there is only one substituent, the number of the parent chain from the end that gives it the lower number, or number the parent chain from the end that gives it the lowest number. Okay? So for example, this one, okay, this one, saan kayo mag-start na mag-count ng ating chain? Is it from the left or from the right? Okay, doon po sa direction kung saan it will give you the lowest number of substituent location in the carbon chain. So for example, if you're going to start counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, this is actually incorrect. Okay, incorrect, because sa carbon 4 mo makikita yung ating substituent na methyl. Okay, unlike if you're going to start counting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sa carbon 2 mo makikita yung ating attached na substituent, which is a methyl. Ito yung gustong sabihin ng ating rule, guys, wherein number the parent chain from the end that gives the substituent a lower number. Okay, so this structure, okay, or this compound rather, is your 2-methyl, okay, pentane. Pentane kasi it's a 5-carbon chain. Okay, it's a 5-carbon chain. 2-methyl because there's a methyl attached to carbon number 2. Okay, there's a methyl group attached to carbon number 2. Okay, so that's rule number 4 po. We also have our last rule na tato, or hindi pa. But rule number 5 po. So for rule number 5, if there are 2 or more identical substituents, take note guys, identical substituents, okay, number the parent chain from the end that gives the lower number to the substituent encountered first. Okay, number daw the parent chain from the end that gives the lower number to the substituent that is encountered first. Okay, and okay, another rule guys, the number of times the substituent occurs is indicated by the prefixes na di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa, and so on, and so on and so forth. Okay, a comma is used to separate the position of the numbers. So for example, okay, there's 2 methyls, right? There are 2 methyls in this, or there are 2 methyls in this chain, okay, or in this compound. Okay, now pwede mo ba siyang i-name as, or pwede ba kayong mag-start ng counting from this side? Okay, pwede ba kayong mag-start ng counting from this side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No po. Okay, mali, because take note guys that your numbering should give the lower number to the substituent that is encountered first. Okay, if you're going to count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, you will encounter po yung ating substituent at carbon number 2. Okay, you will encounter the substituent at carbon number 2. Unlike, okay, from our first trial, okay, you encountered yung ating substituent at carbon 3. Okay, so we prefer po counting from this one. Okay, counting from this one. Now, as you can see, there's actually 2 methyl, okay, substituent. So our name for that one should be or should contain di na prefix and methyl. Okay, dimethyl. And of course, let's not forget po yung ating numbers kung saan naka-attach yung ating mga substituent. Okay, so saan sila naka-attach? At carbon number 2, okay, and carbon number 4. So a comma daw is used to separate a position, the position or the numbers of the position of the substituent. Okay, and since it's a 6 carbon po na compound, okay, the root name for this one would be hexane. Okay, so this is actually the correct name for this compound po, 2,4-dimethyl hexane. Okay, hexane, bakit? Kasi it's a 6 carbon long chain. Okay, dimethyl because there's 2 methyl substituent, and 2,4 to denote that these dimethyl are attached at carbon number 2 and carbon number 4. Okay, carbon number 2 and carbon number 4. Okay, meron pa pala siyang ibang rule. Okay, rule number 6 says that if there are 2 or more different substituents, okay, take note guys that different substituents daw, and it's 2 or more different substituents, by the way, list them in alphabetical order. Okay, you have to list them in alphabetical order and number the chain from the end that gives the lower number to the substituent encountered first. Okay, if there are different substituents in equivalent positions, okay, on opposite ends of the parent chain, the substituent of lower alphabetical order is given the lower count. Okay, it's given the lower count. So we have here an example po. Okay, let's try to name this hydrocarbon. Okay, so from where should you start counting? Okay, we know that this substituent is your methyl. Okay, it's an alkyl po, and we also have here your ethyl. Okay, it's okay, methyl and ethyl. Okay, so according to our rule, if there are 2 or more different substituent, you have to list them in order. Okay, you have to list them in order. So ano yung uunahin ninyong in-name supposedly in this type of compound? Of course, yung ating ethyl. So preferably, you will start counting from this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Therefore, ano yung pangalan ng ating compound? Okay, yung ating compound, it's 3 ethyl. Okay? 3 ethyl. 5 methyl heptane.